You don't really realize how much they sacrifice until you really think about it. Every single one is bound by a curse that will eventually kill them. Were they not around, all of Thedas would succumb to darkness and death. They stare abominations and death in the eye, and they push them back to the darkness. And if they're lucky enough to survive these horrifying battles, what do they get? Nothing. They return injured and weary to their isolated outpost to await another call. No thanks, no reward, nothing. Forgotten until they're needed once again. And then one day, after their lives have been whittled away in the service of humanity, they begin to hear the irresistible call of the archdemon, and they make one last journey to the dark roads, alone for one final brutal battle, until eventually they are subsumed under the wave of darkspawn, taking out as many of the corrupted as they can as they die. The Grey Wardens embody what it is to be a hero. Let's talk about them. This is Mother Mantis. Thanks for coming back for another Dragon Age video. The Grey Wardens are an order of warriors of exceptional ability, dedicated to fighting darkspawn throughout Thedas. The order was founded in 305 Ancient during the First Blight. Now I'm going to make a quick aside here to give you a quick explanation of how calendaring works in Thedas. In the Dragon Age world, there are three major calendars. The Tevinters use their own calendar within the Imperium. The Elven calendar has been in existence the longest, but its use was forbidden when the Tevinters squashed the Elves. The most commonly used calendar is the Chantry Calendar, which measures time in ages. The Chantry Calendar begins at 0 in the year of the Chantry's official founding, which is the year that the first Divine Justinia was named. That's called Divine Age 1.1. So anything prior to that is called the Ancient Age, and the numbering system runs backward from 0. So for instance, Andraste introduced the Maker in 186 Ancient, and the very first Inquisition was 100 Ancient. Make sense? An upcoming age is named by the incumbent divine based on what she foresees for that upcoming age. So each age lasts for 100 years, and the current game age is the Dragon Age, which is the 9th age since the founding of the Chantry. Okay? Okay. As I've mentioned before, as of the events of Inquisition, there have been 5 blights. A blight being defined as when an archdemon appears on the surface. Darkspawn, of course, come to the surface on the regular, so there are always scuffles and ongoing incursions and issues with darkspawn. But the first blight began in 395 Ancient and lasted 192 years. The deep roads, which are underground highways built by the dwarves, were swarmed with these creatures that became known as darkspawn. These creatures seemed limitless in number, and they spread a taint that infected other living creatures and mutated them into monsters, corrupting and poisoning the environment around them. This invasion of darkspawn, which was called the Blight, destroyed most of the underground kingdoms of the dwarves, and it spread to the surface world. Thedas then entered a very dark age. The Darkspawn were found to be led by an immensely powerful dragon tainted with the Darkspawn corruption. This creature was named an Archdemon. At Weishaupt Fortress in the Anderfels, a meeting took place. Soldiers of the Imperium, seasoned veterans who'd known nothing in their entire lifetimes except war, came together for a meeting, and when they left Weishaupt, they had renounced all of their oaths to the Imperium. Calling themselves the Grey Wardens, they swore that they would accept anyone, no matter their race or background, without prejudice or distinction, if they were deemed suitable to join the Order. The Order of Grey Wardens is commanded by the First Warden in Weishaupt and consists of a system of semi-autonomous branches led by a local commander. And though there is a hierarchy, it's usually defined by seniority based upon when the Warden joined the Order. Weishaupt Fortress was chosen because it's in an area that was less affected by the Darkspawn, and it's strategically close to Tevinter. The Wardens began an aggressive campaign against the Darkspawn, reclaiming lands that most people had given up for lost. They proved to be a desperately needed spark of hope in the darkest of hours, and they quickly gained renown and honor from the people of Thedas. So during the next 100 years or so, the Grey Wardens managed to stand firm and they pushed back the Blight. Finally, in 203 Ancient, the Grey Wardens gathered an allied army composed of soldiers from the Tevinter Imperium, the tribes of Sirion, if I'm pronouncing that right, those are the lands that would later become Orlais, and Rivain, to confront the main Darkspawn horde, which was led by the Archdemon who had now been identified as Dumat. A massive battle was waged at the Silent Plains on what is now the border between Tevinter and Navarra. Dumat and the Darkspawn forces were defeated, and Dumat was slain by the Grey Wardens. With the Archdemon's death, the back of the Darkspawn horde was broken, and they mostly retreated back below the surface. It took another decade or so to eradicate the remaining Darkspawn from the surface, but the Blight at that time was over. After the Battle of Silent Plains, the Grey Wardens were much celebrated, and most nations gave formal promises of support for further Darkspawn invasions. The Grey Wardens were also given the right of conscription, which guarantees them sufficient recruits when they need them. In their prime, Grey Wardens rode griffins into battle. Folks from the Anderfels had learned to tame them, and when they began joining the Wardens, they taught other Wardens how to ride the griffins into battle. Unfortunately, during the Fourth Blight, the Wardens were so desperate that they tried to put their griffins through the joining procedure. It didn't work. It tainted the beasts, and that taint spread through the whole population of griffins until they are now basically believed to be extinct. There are 3 more Blights over the next century. It would be 400 years before the 5th Blight, and many people started to think that another Blight was never going to happen. So many Darkspawn were slain during the 4th Blight that many people came to the conclusion that they had been defeated permanently. The Darkspawn were still an ongoing threat to the dwarves, but Darkspawn were rarely seen by surface people, so the Grey Wardens were slowly dismissed as a relic of a dark time. In 7.5 Storm, there was an incident in Ferelden with the local warden commander, Sophia Dryden, who had been a contender for the crown of Ferelden. She became involved in a coup. The result was fighting between the Grey Wardens and the royal army, in which she was killed, and the Grey Warden's command at Soldier's Peak was lost because King Arland banished the order from Ferelden. King Merrick allowed the Grey Wardens back into Ferelden in 910 Dragon Age, and they began to slowly rebuild the order there. But by 930 Dragon, which is just 1 year before the 5th Blight and the events of Origins, the Grey Warden's order is still very small in Ferelden, and the order is not held in high regard there. So at the time of the events of Origins, the strength of the Grey Wardens is estimated at about 1,000 in the Anderfels, several hundred in Orlais, and about 20 in Ferelden. The Grey Wardens are known for ignoring a recruit's racial, social, national, and even criminal background if they deem the person valuable in terms of character, skill, and ability. They also accept volunteers. Elves in particular tend to be eager to submit themselves for the Grey Wardens because they recruit regardless of social standing, and serving is considered an honor, or at least it used to be. One mage in every circle of magi is traditionally recruited, usually joining the order after their harrowing. The young mage recruit serves as a warden for their entire life from then on. Mage wardens inside the order are given great respect and are treated with importance. Dwarves are also viewed as excellent recruits for the order due to their experience with the Darkspawn. However, as there are now fewer dwarves due to low birth rates, there are also fewer wardens from among the dwarves. Grey Wardens are also the only surface organization to care about the endless war the dwarves have with the Darkspawn in the Deep Roads, so the Grey Wardens and the Dwarven people have always had a kinship through their shared battle against the Darkspawn. Should they need to, the Grey Wardens possess the right of conscription, which is an authority that dates back to the end of the first Blight and was given to them to make sure they always have enough members of their order. By using this right, the warden can demand, instantly and irrevocably, any individual from king to criminal be drafted into their ranks, and the conscript cannot refuse once the right is invoked. This is especially true during times of a blight. The right of conscription is used sparingly for fear of political reprisal, because especially of the low standing the order has in Ferelden, the Grey Warders prefer not to invoke it unless there is no other option. And it's usually only invoked to squash protests from a recruit's family, for instance. But the Grey Wardens don't just accept anyone within their ranks. They really only want the best and brightest. Recruits suffer excruciating tests to determine if they're worthy. In addition, the fact that the joining ritual kills many of its participants means that the draft may actually turn out to be a death sentence. But for those that do survive the joining, they become part of an elite fighting force. To face a Grey Warden in combat is to face a deadly opponent. Being a Grey Warden means abandoning all ties to one's old life and dedicating their life to destroying Darkspawn. Grey Wardens go where they're needed most, fight Darkspawn wherever they appear, and do whatever it takes to stop them. They are a frontline presence during a Blight, and they investigate Darkspawn activities outside of Blights. Even if a Grey Warden were to try to abandon their duties, the other Grey Wardens will either drag them back, or their calling and connection to the Darkspawn will eventually lead the Darkspawn to find them. The Grey Wardens are aware that they're fighting a war of attrition against the Darkspawn, and they are also aware that they're on the losing side. Because of that, they know they have to use whatever tactic they can to win in the end, and so they acquire whatever resources they can, regardless of the method. They employ whoever they must, regardless of their background. They'll turn a blind eye to blood magic, they'll deal with demons of the Fade, they'll do whatever they need to do as long as those efforts will lead to the Blight's ending. While most people believe that those who join the Grey Wardens must really hate the Darkspawn, in most cases the recruits are really just responsible individuals with a strong sense of honor. In fact, most Grey Wardens see their first Darkspawn after becoming initiates of the Order. And veteran wardens consider that having a personal hatred of the Darkspawn can actually be detrimental because it can lead them to make rash and irrational decisions. The Grey Warden's first allegiance is always to their duty, and their second to the Grey Warden Order, but wardens are not expected to abandon the lives they had before their joining. Rather, they're encouraged to put their worldly ties to use in furtherance of the Order's aims. They're also allowed to marry, have romantic relationships, or retain the relationships they had before joining the Order, if they want. Whatever relationships they maintain or cultivate, however, they're expected to remain politically neutral. They're discouraged from taking the field in civil or religious conflicts against any enemy other than Darkspawn. Because Grey Wardens are so crucial to Thedas' survival, various groups and nations signed ancient treaties promising to support the Grey Wardens in times of blight. The Dwarven Treaty, for instance, was signed during the reign of the Paragon and King Bemot, 16 generations before the events of the 5th Blight, so the treaties really are ancient. At any rate, this support can come in the form of military aid, donations of money and gold, supplies, armed forces, and equipment. And although those bound to the treaty are obligated to fulfill their promises, Grey Wardens also believe in times of blight that those treaties entitle them to take what's needed when it's needed. The dwarves and the wardens have a special relationship because the wardens are just about the only surface people who share kinship with the dwarves in their fight against the Darkspawn, but the treaties exist with several nations and entities, including the Dalish and the Circle of Magi. Just as they keep secrets from outsiders, such as the Joining, Grey Wardens also keep secrets from their own members. It's heavily implied in the lore that the Calling, which is also known as the Long Walk, was a ritual created by the first Grey Wardens to prevent future members from watching themselves ultimately succumb to the Darkspawn. The Calling begins with nightmares and bad omens. The Warden then begins to hear music and whispers, the same call essentially that the Darkspawn hear when they search for the old gods. Although Alistair will claim that it takes a person about 30 years after joining to hear the calling, this really should be considered, according to the lore, a really upper limit. The gap will vary depending on the willpower of the individual warden and the level of their interaction with the Darkspawn. As such, Grey Wardens during a blight are likely to have shorter lifespans, and some wardens go on to their calling after only 5 or 10 years. But when their time is close, a warden honors a long-standing agreement between the wardens and the dwarves, and they'll serve a year fighting the Darkspawn in the deep roads at the dwarves' side. When the call of the taint becomes unbearable, according to ritual, the dwarves will celebrate and honor the warden, and the warden then enters the deep roads for their final battle. Many within the Order believe that this ritual is done for practical reasons, to take down as many enemies as a Grey Warden can before dying. But even if a Grey Warden tries to avoid it, in time, all wardens find themselves in the deep roads or being pursued by the Darkspawn, because just as the Grey Warden can sense the presence of Darkspawn can sense the presence of wardens, because they're all connected by the taint after the joining, and that taint draws them to each other. So there you have it. Despite their small numbers, Grey Wardens have been instrumental in defeating the Blight so far, and thus they're vital to the survival of Thedas as a whole. If you're wondering how the Grey Wardens will be involved in Dragon Age 4, well, remember there are at least 2 old gods still out there waiting to be found in the deep roads. It's only a matter of time before they're uncovered. At the very least, that's 2 more full-fledged Blights. The Grey Wardens are going to be anxious to redeem themselves after the events of Inquisition, so I think we'll be seeing a lot of the Order of Grey Wardens in Dragon Age 4. Thanks for watching. Enjoy your day, and cheers. Oh my god, I need a facelift. Hi, this is Diana.